Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, November the 5th, 2020. It is currently 11:17 a.m. Central Time, and it's time for my devotional time of study. I've been here doing some live broadcast. I was thinking about packing everything up, go home, get some food, and I'm like, you know what? If I pack up and I go home, I'm going to get home and look for food, go get food, whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to be doing other things throughout the day. Who knows? Watching television, listening to music, whatever I'm going to be doing. And I know what I'm going to 100% neglect. I'm going to neglect any devotional study time today. I'm going to neglect it. And I try my best to maintain my 4 times of devotional, four times of devotional study. I try to do that. I fall short. I never try to. I don't tell people that because I want to make it look like I'm more spiritual, because I'm not. I tell people that because I try to encourage you that I'm just like you. I struggle with trying. Like right now. I mean, I've been here doing live broadcast, and I could pat myself on the back and go, "Look, I've been talking about things related to theology," but that doesn't mean anything if I don't ensure that I'm spending quality time with God in Bible study, meditating and thinking about the things of God. So I decided to stop what I was doing. I was about to pack everything up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sit down, have a little devotional study. Now, for those who are new, this is how this works. This is a devotional study in real time. In other words, I didn't sit down first, write down notes, plan everything out. No, this is me having my devotional study live on the air, all right? Some people love when I do this. Some people hate when I do this. I do know this. For those who hate it, I know this is a difficult concept, but no one is forcing you to listen, all right? So I don't know why if you hate it, I don't know why you take the time to email me to tell me how much you hate it, because really you're just wasting more of your time, because you don't have to listen and you don't need to waste your time emailing me how much you hate it. But I like doing this. I think it's very real. And I think I would have loved, when I was a young Christian, to listen to people having their devotional study, and I could join them and participate with them. I think there's something kind of cool about it. So I'm going to continue to do this whenever I have the opportunity, and I have the opportunity right now. So are you ready? What I'm going to do for my devotional study time, I guess we'll call this my afternoon devotional time, because it's fast approaching noon. So for my afternoon devotional study time today, I'm going to utilize an article that I saw, and I'm going to read just part of the article. And then, because the article gets down to a scripture reference, and I want to get to that scripture reference, and we're going to use that scripture reference really for the basis of my devotional time, of our devotional thought today. And I kind of had, in fact, I had kind of in my mind maybe a direction I was going to go, but once I started filling out all of the information for the podcast episode, giving it a title, finding the artwork, doing all that stuff, all of a sudden a different thought popped into my mind. So I don't know where we're going to ultimately end up. We never know, but we're going to find out. So let's first go to the article that I saw this the other day, and I saved it. And I want to return to it. This comes to us from the Christian Post. This was published on October the 27th, so it's been around for a while. I don't know how I just came across this the other day, but I did. It was published on Tuesday, October the 27th. Here is the title of this article: "When God's Refining Process Hurts." When God's refining process hurts. Now, that's that title caught my attention. When God's refining process hurts. Okay, so this is going with the idea that there is a refining process that God has, that there's a refining process, and he utilizes this refining process, obviously, on Christians, on you and I, that we get put into this refining process, and that what we have to realize is that it hurts. Now, just because it hurts doesn't mean it's good, but we have to be prepared that it hurts. All right. Now, what is this refining process? How does this refining process work? Do we have any scriptural basis for believing in this refining process? Now, we've talked about, I think, in a Bible study exercise and a couple of things. We went to, I think, 1 Peter 1:7? And we talked about that verse and the different ways of interpreting it. But let's see where they go in this article. Let's read a little bit of this article because I think this is an interesting concept that we could probably hopefully get a lot from this. All right. Here's how the article begins. All right. So remember the title, When God's Refining Process Hurts. Christians often talk about God's work of refining us and changing us into better people. It has a nice ring to it, but in reality, it can be a pretty tough experience. To refine literally means to free something such as metal, sugar, or oil from impurities or unwanted material. To improve or perfect by pruning or polishing. Refining something inherently means that we are changing that thing. We are removing substances from it, but we are ultimately making it better. So if God has a refining process, if this is a true concept, then what that means is that God, in this refining process, basically tries to remove impurities or those things that are unwanted from your life and my life. God puts us in a process to say, okay, here's this impurity. This is this, I don't want that there. And he tries to remove it. Now, please remember, this would be God. God has a refining process because God, there's things about your life and my life. He doesn't like that material. He doesn't like that there, and he wants it removed. That means it's not based on what you want. It's not based on what we want. It's not that like sometimes it's like, does a refining process work? Like it depends on how we view this. I think some Christians review the refining process. Okay, I discover the things I don't want in my life. Like here's the thing I don't want in my life. I don't like it. And so now I'm going to bring it to God and say, God, refine me. God, remove this impurity. Here's the list of impurities that I discovered today in my prayer time and my devotional time, whatever the case may be. Now I'm going to hand you the list, Lord. Please start the refining process. Does it work that way? In other words, I discover it. I write the list of impurities. I give it to God, and then God works to remove said impurities. Or does it work that God clearly sees the impurities? He knows the impurities because he's eternal and he's all-knowing. He sees everything. There's nothing hidden from the eyes of God. He sees inside my heart. He sees inside your heart. And God says, those impurities, I want them gone. Now I'm going to start the refining process. I'm not asking you for permission. I'm not asking you if you want it. You're a Christian. You're my child. I'm going to start the refining process. Some Christians almost treat it like I figured them out, I bring them to God, and he refines me. Well, that's a nice thought. But if God's in charge of it, it seems to me that God would be the one who identifies the impurity, and then he starts the refining process to remove said impurity. I think we have to ask ourselves, when we think of a refining process, we think of God doing a refining process. How do we picture it in our minds? Do we control it? Oh, that's too much heat. Whoa. No. I don't like this. This hurts. Stop it. Or is it God saying, I'm in charge here? How do you view it in your mind? How do you view it in your mind? I think that's very, very important that we have a right perspective here, right? The article continues. God knows our inner beings and our deepest desires. Amen. He does know our inner beings. He knows our deepest desires. But he also knows the ways in which we can improve. He wants to make us better people. And when we follow his will and plan for our lives, we're able to live the best life possible. All right. That's a very, I think what God, I don't know if God wants us to be, makes us better people, and he wants us to be able to have the best life possible. I would say that God is ultimately more worried about our lives bringing him greater glory. I don't know if he's worried about necessarily better people and best life. I think he's worried about glory. I mean, that God does all things for his glory and honor. So I don't know. We could kind of maybe, pick at that, but I don't want to get too much into it. What I'm focused on is where the individual who wrote this is going. And where they're going is right after that statement that if we follow his will and plan for our lives, we'll be able to live the best life possible. The very next statement is this: Proverbs 17:3. Proverbs 17:3. And I'm going to quote it from the translation they use in this article. All right, we'll look at it from the King James, which I have sitting right here next to me. But I want to see what they have to say here. Proverbs 17:3 says, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart." That's Proverbs 17:3. Let me read it to you in the King James. Proverbs 17:3. "The fining pot is for silver, and the furnace for gold, but the Lord trieth the hearts." So the idea is there's this fining pot for silver. So an idea, you put the silver in this pot, it's heated up, and you skim off the impurities, and then once it cools, then you have pure silver with all the impurities gone. Same with gold. I think it's that seems to be the idea. You have this furnace, and then you heat it up, and then you skim off the impurities, and then you have pure gold. And that God, in a sense, when it says tries the heart, that he refines the heart. That, in fact, what's the word trieth here? Let's look up this. I'm going to look up this in the Blue Letter Bible app. I'm just interested. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's go to Proverbs 17:3. All right. 17:3, he trieth the hearts. What is the Hebrew word here? I think if I said Greek, I apologize. The Hebrew word here is
Strong's H 974. Bachan.
All right, bachan is to examine, try, prove, to test, prove, try of gold, persons, and the heart of man, and the heart. To make a trial, to be tried, approved. It's used 29 times, try 19 times, prove 7 times, examine 1 time, tempt 1 time, trial 1 time. All right, it's to examine, prove, tempt, and try. So this kind of giving me a different. Now I'm kind of processing the way this thinks. So when it says he tests the hearts, does he examine the hearts to see if it's real, or is he examining the hearts, testing the hearts, trying the heart to see the impurity, and then removes the impurity? Like, does God just magically remove the impurity? Well, like, clearly, I think we can say safely that we play a part in the refining process. I think we do. I think we have to. Like, if we make this all just like God's doing the whole process, I think if you hear all that sound in the background, that was me moving books and stuff. So I apologize. I always forget that, when you're doing an audio podcast, people can't see what you're doing, so they hear, sounds. They don't know what's going on. So that's me moving stuff. All right. So I'm just trying to think this through. Because on one hand, I think we have to accept the fact that God is the one who sees the impurities and he starts the refining process. But does he destroy the impurities without our assistance, or are we somehow involved in removing the impurities? Like, we could talk about, is this a monergistic idea? In other words, the work of one, or is this a synergistic work, the work of two? Are we involved in this process? All right, so that's an interesting verse. Let's see what they have to say about this. We're going to go back to Proverbs 17:3 because that's really where I want to spend my time. But I'm curious to see what else they have to say about this. All right, let's go back here to where they have this. All right, so they quote Proverbs 17:3 as saying, "The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the hearts. Daily circumstances are not the things that will give us joy. Our heart and mindset are what God wants to turn to focus on him. He wants to change our hearts for our own good." Again, I have a little, this is very humanistic in its approach. He wants to change our hearts for his glory. This seems to be almost viewing the refining process as a self-help tool. Like, hey, if you want to be the best you that you can be, The refining process. It's like, it's like join the Marines or join the Army. It's going to make you the best person you can be. You join the Army and the Marines, for self-improvement, to become the person you've always designed to be. And I hate that even as a recruitment tool in the military. No, you're joining the military so that the military uses you for its purpose. Okay. Like the military is going to make you the best person that they can make you for their ultimate purpose to accomplish their task and their mission. You're there for them. You're not there for you. You're there for them. Now they're going to pay you and they may give you benefits, but you're ultimately used for their purpose and their agenda. And if they need 100 people to go take a hill and they know that 99 are going to die, but they think it's of strategic value, you're expendable. You're expendable. You're going to be, because they're there for their purpose. So I think sometimes we turn God into a self-help coach, right? To a life coach, that he's there to make us the best person we can be, that we can have the best life that we can have. No, we are God. We are created by God for God, and we're there for his glory and his honor and his purpose, not our purpose. So so they're trying to turn this refining process into like a self-help program. It's not a self-help program. It's God refining the impurities so that we can bring him greater glory and honor. I think that's a more biblical approach to this, but let's see what else they have to say here. All right. We might not even know that we're being refined until we reach the end of a difficult season. When we think about refining ourselves, it can be an uncomfortable idea. Going through something that will change us is not easy, but when God is involved, it is always for the best. Sometimes when we are within a trial, it can feel like we will never get through it. The process can seem cloudy and might feel like we can't see clearly. But if we remember that God is with us even through the hard times, then we can have the faith that he will see us through to the other side. It can feel as if we are sludging along, barely making it to the end of each day, but God will show up. He will get us through, and when we see his faithfulness, we will be able to remember those times in the future when we were in the midst of another trial. All right. They go on to say, it always seems easier to look at the past and remember when God has answered our prayers, but in the midst of our praying and crying out to him, it's hard to anticipate any light at the end of the tunnel. We might think that we know what the perfect life looks like, what the best time would be for certain things to happen, but the reality is that God holds each one of us and each one of our lives in the palm of his hand. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he wants us to trust him even when we don't understand his plan. The seasons of difficulty give us perspective and testimony for the calmer seasons in the future. But it's important to remember that we don't know what other people might be going through at any given time. Storms can appear to be different sizes depending on the person who is in the middle of them. Remember to offer the same grace to others that we receive from God when we cry out to him. The story of Job is compelling. The story of Job is a compelling reminder of God's power over the plan for our lives. When everything is taken from him, Job cries out, lamenting over his hardship. He feels as if God has abandoned him, but he still knows that God is with him. And then they quote here, "Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backwards, but I do not perceive him. On the left hand, when he is working, I do not behold him. He turns to the right hand, but I do not see him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold." Right? That's from Job 23. Even when we are in the refining process, going through trials, we should remember that God is right there with us. He does not want us to believe the lie that we are alone. Jesus is in control of everything, even the hard times, but we don't have to go through them alone. He promises to be with us always to the end of the age. All right, now, I apologize. I know I'm not reading that like I'm completely engaged. I'm not reading that in the correct way. I'm not reading it like I'm trying to read it to you. I'm reading that like I'm reading it to myself, because I'm really reading that to myself because I'm trying to process what's going on there. I think this has a very interesting, this sees the refining process as being beneficial, that I can have the best life I can have. That's going to make me a better person. And I just think that that's not a spiritual perspective of the refining process. I mean, think about Job. I mean, Job goes through fire. I mean, the fire is turned up to 100. I mean, that is some horrible things that he goes through. Remember, it's all set up by God. Hey, Satan, have you considered my servant Job? God sets the whole thing up. And then when Job finally asks God all of those questions, God then bombards him with all of these questions that Job cannot answer. So Job asks God some questions, and God's like, oh, wait a minute. Who are you? Listen, see if you can answer. Boom, 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 question after question after question. And then Job at the end is like, you know what? I'm putting my hand over my mouth. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say another thing. I'm foolish. Job doesn't even ever get an explanation to what was happening. He doesn't get an explanation to why it was happening. He doesn't get any explanation at all. So was that all designed simply that Job would be a better person? I think we like to think so. The text doesn't imply that God did this to make Job a better person. God seemed to imply this, I'm doing this to make a point to Satan. In other words, God was doing it more for his glory and his purpose, not for the betterment of Job, but for the glory of God. That seems to be more of the idea. I know we don't like that. I just think I think we have to realize, I think this is important. For the refining process, now you can tell me if you agree or disagree with this. This is kind of the thought that I'm having right now. The refining process will not really be a refining process until you and I see the process as being about God's purpose and God's glory and not us. It's not about us being better. It's not about us becoming all that we can be. It's about God's glory. And if we are not committed to God's glory, then we're not going to handle the refining process in a correct way. We're not going to see this as we're going to try to short circuit the refining process. We're not going to be looking for the impurities to get out of our lives. We have to see that Lord, I exist for your glory and your purpose. Do what you want to me. Do what you need to me so that you receive the greater glory. If we're not committed to God's glory, then we just see it as difficult. Like, I think that many Christians see, oh, well, God's brought trials in my life, but he's going to make me better and he's going to do all things. Like, it becomes about us. And I think we short circuit. I think that destroys the refining process. I have to see the process as God doing what he wants in me, to me, through me, for his purpose and his glory. If I see it being about me, then I think it's almost a narcissistic. Lord, yes, you're giving me some difficulties, but you're making me better. I'm going to be a better person. Like, it's about our glory. It's about our honor, our purpose. I can have a better life if you'll bring some refining fire into me, make me better. It's like when someone signs up to go to a gym and they take the different kinds of classes you can have at a gym, all the different kinds of classes, cycling, whatever the case may be. You go through that you go through all of that. I mean, if you note, almost in most gyms in any kind of place where there's usually working out, there's usually a lot of cases there's mirrors somewhere nearby so that you can look at yourself. And that's what you do. You go through the trial of the workout. Push-ups, crunches, whatever. You're going leg lifts. You're doing all of these squats. You're doing all of this work. And then at some point, guess what? You go stand on a scale. You look in the mirror because it's about you. You're going through the fire so that you can look better, feel better. It's about you, how you're going to feel. I think that's how we view a lot of times the refining process God supposedly puts us in. He puts us in the fire, but look at how I'm going to turn out. Look at how I'm going to be better. I'm going to have a better life. No. It's about God's glory. If you make it about your glory, then that's not refining. In fact, all you're doing is using the refining process to elevate your own narcissistic pride and selfishness. I think maybe in many cases, Christians have rewritten the refining process to turn it into a self-help program, a betterment program. For ourselves. I think I think we've got it wrong. What do you think? Please let me know what you think. You can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. So let's go back to Proverbs 17:3. Let's go back to Proverbs 17:3, all right? First, I'm going to read Proverbs 17:3 from a number of translations, all right? So just we get a feel how the different translators have handled this, all right? The New International Version handles Proverbs 17:3 this way. The crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart. New Living Translation, fire tests the purity of silver and gold, but the Lord tests the heart. The crucible is for silver and the furnace is for gold, and the Lord tests the heart. The Berean Study Bible, same thing. The crucible for silver, the furnace for gold, but the Lord is the tester of the hearts. So all of them have test the hearts, trieth the hearts. They all have the same thing. You've got gold and silver, and then you got the heart. Gold and silver is put in some kind of fire to be tested, to be purified, and there's something similar that occurs. Let's look at how some of the commentaries handle this, all right? Okay, the fining pot is for silver, all right? And then they say, the Lord trieth the hearts. This is how this commentary puts it. By allowing sorrows and temptations to assail them in order that they may come out of the trial as pure gold. So according to this commentary, this is how the refining process works. God allows sorrows and temptations to assail us. Now I want you to think of sorrow we can understand, but a temptation. So if God allows the temptation to come to us, right? And I think this is hard. This is hard to try to wrap our minds around. So here's a person in the church. They get bombarded with temptation. Now, we would say they should resist the temptation, but what if they don't resist the temptation? What if they fall into horrible sin? Is it possible that God, I'm not saying God supports the sin, but is it possible that the temptation and the failure and the sin is a part of the refining process? Now, in other words, what refines us sometimes is not just us resisting the temptation, but is part of the refining process the falling to temptation and actually falling into sin? Was David refined by resisting the temptation to commit adultery, or was he refined by not only not resisting, committing adultery, covering it up, and murdering someone? Now, that doesn't excuse the adultery or the murder. Absolutely not. It's evil, it's sinful, it's condemned. But was there possibly something a refining that comes out of it? We almost see that, hey, God refines you by tempting you, but not by sinning. Because once you sin, then many Christians are like, we've got to crucify the heathen. We've got to stone the heathen. Well, maybe that's a part of the refining process. So then how does the church cooperate with that? Doesn't mean we agree with the sin. I'm not saying that. I just think that's an interesting concept. So let me read this again. The Lord trieth the hearts by allowing sorrows and temptations to assail them in order that they may come out of the trial as pure gold, purged of earthly infirmities. Now, they offer a number of scriptures here. Let's look at them. Go to Revelation chapter 3. I'm going to mark Proverbs 17:3 here. Right? I'm going to mark it. Go to Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3. Revelation 3:18. Revelation 3:18. All right, this is a letter to a part of the letter of the churches. I think this is to the church at Laodicea. All right, this is to the Laodiceans, I believe. Let's see here. This is Revelation 3:18. Make sure I got the right reference here. Revelation 3:18. Yes, Revelation 3:18. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Buy of me, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. All right, we could talk about that. I don't know if that really helps as a cross-reference here. They got 1 Peter 1:7. I knew that one was coming. 1 Peter 1:7. Let's go to that one. 1 Peter 1:7. 1 Peter 1:7, now we go back to verse 6 for context, wherein you greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, you are in heaviness through manifold temptations, through manifold trials, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold, that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, may be found under the praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ. Now remember, I've talked about the how to interpret 1 Peter 1:7. Does the trying of our faith, the testing of our faith, in a sense, putting in a fire, does this simply reveal true faith, reveal the faith, or does it purify to bring about a pure faith? In other words, is the trial there simply to reveal it, or is it there to help mold it, shape it, and purify it? Because again, look at how 1 Peter 1:7 is written. 1 Peter 1:7, that the trial of your faith being more precious than gold and that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, may be found unto praise and honor, unto glory. Is it the fire that just simply reveals it, or is it the fire that purifies it so that it can be found unto the praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ? But please note, the purifying, the fire, is for the ultimate glory and honor of God, not your glory and honor. It's not to make you can have the best life now. The article that we read seemed to have a very humanistic approach to this. All right. That scripture, I think, really gives us a better mindset. Go to 1 Corinthians 3. 1 Corinthians 3. Let's go to 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 13. Now, I don't like the quoting of this one. I do not like the quoting of this, because this seems to be speaking about a coming judgment. 1 Corinthians 3:13, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. Seems to be referring to a coming judgment, sometimes depending on if you believe in one judgment or different judgments. This sometimes referred to as the judgment of works, and that our works will be tried by fire. But even if they all burn up, we will still yet be saved, but in a sense by fire. So I don't think that really helps us in how this works in your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday life as far as the refining process. We could talk about that's not even ultimately a refining process. We could, that one doesn't really help much. And then they have here, let me go back. They have here Malachi. Let's go to the book of Malachi. See, sometimes when commentaries just throw out a bunch of cross-references, you have to really look at the cross-references, because sometimes they're not as helpful as that you may think they are. But we're going to look at them. All right. Malachi chapter 3, verse 3. Malachi chapter 3, verse 3. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify. I got to get to the next page here. He shall purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that he may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. Well, you're going to have to look at exactly what prophecy this is referring to. I don't think it has anything to do with your life or my life. This is a prophecy that we could say, we could get into a discussion of eschatology. Has it been fulfilled? Will it be fulfilled? Why is it the sons of Levi? Wait a minute. Is this referring to a future purifying of Israel? We could get into a whole discussion there. But it does demonstrate that God does do a work of purifying. There's a purifying work, a refining process that plays itself out. How that plays out in your life and my life, that's what we're still trying to figure out. Let's go to another commentary in regards to Proverbs 17:3. All right? Let's see here. The idea here seems to be, they say most likely Proverbs 17:3 is alluding to the same method of smelting the ore in crucibles for the purpose of separating the pure metal from the dross. The silver and gold were plentiful in Solomon's time is abundantly evident. Indeed, the amount of the precious metals collected by David and his son is almost incredible. See 1 Chronicles 22:14, 1 Chronicles 29:2. From which and similar passages it is inferred that the sums enumerated equaled more than 900 millions of pounds of sterling. So in other words, that the amount of gold and silver at that time was absolutely staggering to even comprehend when you read those passages. 900 millions of pounds of sterling, according to them. In other words, a crazy amount, and that purifying process would have been utilized over and over to purify that gold and silver. But the Lord trieth the hearts. That which fire does for the metal, the Lord does for men's hearts. He purifies them from dross, brings forth the good that is in them, purged from earthly infirmities. God's process is the application of sorrow, sickness, temptation, that duly meeting these, the soul may emerge from the trial as pure gold, fit for the master's use. All right. Now they have two references to other passages in Proverbs. Let's look at them. They got Proverbs 15:11. Proverbs 15:11. Let's look at it. Proverbs 15:11. We read this. Proverbs 15:11. That's what they actually have here. This is what they have down. Hell and destruction are before the Lord. How much more than the hearts of the children of men? So this is the idea that hell and destruction are open before the Lord. He sees them. Well, how much more is your heart and my heart? If God sees hell and destruction, he sees your heart and my heart. Okay, well, we agree that he definitely sees the heart. Proverbs 24:12. Let's go to Proverbs 24:12. What does he have in store for us here? Proverbs 24:12. If thou sayest, behold, we know it not, does not he that pondereth the heart considereth it? And he that keepeth thy soul, doth not he know it? And shall not he render to every man according to his works? This is the idea that God knows the heart. He knows the heart. He sees the heart. And then go back to our key text, Proverbs 17:3. The fining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord trieth the hearts. All right. Now we put all of that together. We have a lot of things there to try to figure out. Give me 1 second. I got to put the pages back in my Bible because they're falling out. I know what you're saying. You keep saying you're going to buy a Bible and a new Bible, and you never do. I know that. At some point, I will. I just keep forgetting to buy a new Bible. But this is the one I use all the time. I need a new one of these, so I'll have to do that at some point. It's falling apart, okay? But you know what they say? A Bible falling apart is a sign of a life that isn't. But that's not always true because a lot of people have Bibles that fall apart and their life still falls apart. So, but it's a little nice little saying to have. All right, but we need to get back to the key factor here. It appears that God does have a refining process. Most believe the refining process that God has for you and for me is by exposing us to sorrow, to difficulty, to pain. I think we need to maybe state that a little differently. All people, Christian and non-Christian alike, right? All people, lives are exposed to sorrow, to pain, to trouble, to tragedy, to temptation. Everyone in the world we encounter these things because we live in a fallen world. We live in an imperfect world where there's pain, there's sickness, and disease. Everyone experiences those things. But for the Christian, those experiences are utilized by God in order to purify. I'm going to argue that God utilizes the difficulties and the struggles of everyday life for two purposes. I'm going to argue that the refining process, I think, involves two things, okay? I think it involves two things. So he utilizes all of the difficulties in life. We all face it. But for the Christians, something is happening here. The difficulties in life, number one, they expose. There's an exposing part of the refining process. It exposes something because the difficulties in life exposes what's really in your heart. Like, I think part of the refining process has to be the exposing because the exposing reveals the impurities. Just like when you put gold in the furnace and it begins to melt, the infirmities rise to the top. There's an exposing. It reveals. It's a revealing part. Right? And I think we have to see that. There's a revealing part. Because look, when everything's going great in your life and everything's going great in my life, there's no temptation, there's no trials, there's no difficulties, there's no sickness, there's no problems, then we can, we may be demonstrating like, we're happy, we have joy, we're thinking good thoughts, everything may be going wonderful in our life, and we may get the impression that we're far more spiritual than we are. We are far more godly than we are. Look, this always happens, right? Just right now. A little while ago, just a few minutes ago, I received an email notification. Someone sent me an email because I guess one of the pastors for Hillsong has been removed as pastor for some kind of moral failure. And someone sent this to me. And I looked quickly at the comments underneath it, and everybody's like, blah, loser, guy's a false teacher, and just everyone's just bashing the person. Moral failure. I can't wait till we see what it is. Just all of this just bashing. You know why? Because, see, you didn't go through whatever that temptation was. You didn't go through that failure. So you sit there pretending that you're morally superior, that you're better. Christians love when people fall into sin. We say we don't, but we seem to love it because we spread it, we mock it, we condemn it, we slander, we gossip. Look, why? It should break our hearts. You know what we should say? Thank God. I thank you, Lord, that wasn't me. Lord, because only by your grace I would be in the same situation. And I know that today I'm not there. Today I'm not in a news headline about the failure of the pastor from Hillsong. I don't know what he did. I don't know what happened. I hope he stays in the church. Even though he's removed from the pastorate, I hope he stays right there in the church. I hope they love him and they pick him back up and they clean him up and in a sense try to restore him. I hope so. But sadly, most likely he's fired and he'll just go somewhere else. And I know he needs to be in a church and be loved and put back together. Look, we got to be put back together. But I think it's so easy for us. When we see other people fall, we feel like we're morally superior. We think we're great because we didn't face the temptation. We didn't fall. So look, pat myself on the back. I'm good. I'm better than that person. But what happens when you experience temptation? What do you experience when you face trial? What do you expect? What would happen to you if you faced the exact set of circumstances? Now, you can sit there and tell yourself all day that not me. It's when you face the temptation, you can sit there and condemn David all day. I don't know how David ended up committing adultery, then covering it up and killing someone. I could never do that. Maybe you would, maybe you could, maybe you couldn't, but you don't know. It's when you get put into the crucible, when you get put into the fire, when you get hit with the sorrow, the trial, the temptation, then guess what shows up? What is revealed? The impurity in your life. Look, you may look like the best husband and the best wife ever when everything's going great in your relationship. Oh, there's love, there's happiness. It's like being on your honeymoon. And then as soon as things go horribly wrong, guess what's going to show up? And then things are going to show up in your heart, in your life that you didn't even know was there. All of a sudden, now you're bitter. Now you're angry. Now you're saying things you didn't want to say. Now you're not going to forgive. Now you're using words you never thought you would use. Now you're bashing or gossiping about your spouse to your friends because you're upset. Now you're demonstrating an ungodliness. Guess what? The trial reveals, it exposes, it brings the fire, the refining process brings the impurity to the surface. It brings it to the surface. You can't see the impurity until it's put into the refining fire, and then the impurity rises to the surface. It's when we go through the most difficult times in our Christian life that what really there rises to the top. Here, now I'm going to throw out, this is going to be controversial. Let me throw this out. I think the refining process, not only does it reveal the impurity, I think it also reveals the faithfulness. It reveals the impurity and reveals the faithfulness. Let me explain. And I know there's no way to really quantify this. There's no way to really measure this, but I want you to just think about this. The person who sits in church, they're moral. Think of the prodigal son and the older brother. The prodigal son bails. He leaves, he goes, man, he takes his father's inheritance, he spends it, crazy, drunken living. He ends up in a pig pen, crazy. He looks like a complete and utter failure and a complete and utter loser. But he gets up and he goes back to the father. He humbles himself. He goes back. He's going to be embarrassed. He's got to feel the shame. He's got to look into his father's eyes. And even if the father doesn't say it, he can see in those eyes, I told you so, right? And it's like, this is embarrassing. He's going to go back and everybody's going to be like, oh, big shot. He got the inheritance. He went off and he was going to leave all of us and he's going to go live life. And look at him come crawling back, broken, destitute, a failure. You know how embarrassing it is to come back? You know how embarrassing that is? Okay, but guess what? The coming back revealed something. Not only did the going reveal the impurities, I think the coming back revealed a trust in the Father, a love for the Father. It revealed something. But the older brother, who has been sitting there the whole time, who appeared to be so righteous, he gets upset that the brother came back. He gets upset that the brother is treated like he is completely forgiven. He's like, no. I've been here the whole time. I've been faithful. Look at that loser. Why should he be accepted back? Right? Well, guess what? Sometimes the person who falls into sin, horrible sin, brings great shame. Is it possible that sometimes their way of handling their failure can reveal a faithfulness that wasn't seen prior to? That the people who've been faithful the whole time, sometimes their faithfulness isn't as faithful as it appears because they've not gone through the failure. I'm saying that sometimes a person can fall into great sin and they can it reveals the impurity, but it can reveal a trust in God because of how they handle the failure. They don't run. They confess, they acknowledge, they deal with the embarrassment, they deal with the shame, and they move on. Now, people may always have them marked, with the scarlet letter of whatever sin they've committed, but they don't allow that shame to stop them from serving God. Does that not reveal something? I think the refining process is a revealing thing. I think it can reveal when the faith is genuine, right? Because when you put gold or silver, it melts down. You see the pure gold, but you see the impurity. The purity and the impurity are both revealed. So I think whenever life hits us, we have to stop and go, where is what? And I think this is the part of where we come into play. God puts us in the fire, and then two things are revealed. The level of our faithfulness and the amount of impurity. And what we have to do is acknowledge both. Like, I am grateful that in certain times of I've had times of being put in the fire. And guess what? The impurity has been seen, but I think there's also always been this sense that no matter how much I fail, I'm going to keep trying to serve God. Instead of abandoning God, I always tend to return to God, even sometimes at my own personal cost. Sometimes it would make more sense just to abandon Christianity and say, forget it. But I always try to continue to move forward. The impurity was revealed, but faithfulness is revealed as well. I just think sometimes we think that the only time faithfulness is revealed is when someone is the older brother sitting at home and they don't find themselves in the pig pen. And they're like, look how faithful they are. Are they? Sometimes the faithfulness is seen in the midst of failure and sin and sorrow and pain and bitterness. And when you really get depressed and everything seems to be going horribly wrong and you're not handling it well. I think sometimes, yes, the impurity is seen, but there. So I think the refining process has a revealing and exposing. It exposes impurity and it exposes faithfulness. All right. Now, but the refining process has to do also with the burning away and removal of the impurity. Now, how does that work? I think there's two. I think there's the God part. I think the God part puts us in that fire and it burns it away. And I think it can burn away the impurity of loving the world. It can burn the impurity of trusting in ourselves and trusting in people. I think it can burn away some of that, just God doing it. But I think a large portion of the purifying process is us acknowledging the impurity and then doing what we can to remove it. I think we have to scrape it off. I think God puts us in the fire and it brings it to the surface, but we've got to scrape it off. We've got to separate that impurity from the pure and remove it. I think we have to be a part of that. Or sometimes we need other people to help us. I don't think it just magically happens that God puts you in the fire and then boom, look, I came out all better. I think the fire reveals and exposes, and then we're a part of the removing process. I think there's something to that. Let's go back to the key verse for today. Proverbs 17:3. Proverbs 17:3. I'm going to put Proverbs 17:3. I'm going to put it on the Bible memory app. I'm going to put Proverbs 17:3 on the Bible memory app. There's the pages of my Bible falling out again. Proverbs 17:3. The fining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord trieth the heart. The Lord trieth the heart. And remember, the refining process has two parts. An exposing, a revealing, right? Has that. But then there's got to be a removal. There's got to be a removal. We've got to scrape off the impurity. Or all we did was get put in the fire. Like if the fire doesn't reveal, if it doesn't lead to a revealing and a removing, then all we did was get burned. That's all we did. Like if we get put in the fire and the impurity and the faithfulness is not exposed and we don't remove it, then all we did was get burnt. That's all we did. We don't gain anything from it. We want to gain something from it. We don't want to just suffer for suffering's sake. That's the difference. Everyone suffers. Everyone faces temptation. Lost and the godly, the saved and the unsaved. The thing is, for us, we believe that all of this is about a refining process. That God saves us because we're sinners, but he loves us to try to remove that impurity till we move to a greater level of glory and honor to God, not to ourselves. Right? I know there's a lot of thoughts thrown in all of that, but I'll be I can't wait to get everyone's feedback on this. What are your thoughts? All right. This is my devotional thought. I'm laying it before you. Give me your thoughts. All right. I think this is I think we're really trying to dive deep into this concept, and I think we're trying to handle it in a biblical way. I think we went far deeper than that article did. That article, I think, was very humanistic. I think we need a more God-focused understanding of the refining process. All right, so email me, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. I'm going to check my email really quick. All right. Okay, give me 1 second. I got all these news articles. I was seeing if there were any messages there. Let me open this up. I'm going to check my email just to see if we got any information. All right. I was just making sure no one had emailed me while I was live on the air. All right. I've got no new email. I do have this. The people from Edify, they have emailed me. They emailed me at 5:53 this morning telling me, Trevor, apologies. It's been a crazy week. I'm going to listen and get back to you ASAP. So they said they were going to get back to me ASAP. I'm still having a hard time what they have to listen. I've listened to all kinds of things on Edify, and we meet at least the same. We equal and sometimes far exceed the quality of many of the podcasts on Edify. So I don't know why. Like we're going through some kind of review process, I guess, on Edify. I don't know what review process there is. I didn't even know there was one. They've got 2.5 million podcasts on there. Trust me, they got people saying all kinds of things. So I find it interesting that we've got to go through a review process, but we're waiting. Supposedly he was going to get back to me ASAP. That was 5:53 a.m. It's currently 12:11 p.m. So I don't know. I am going to say that we're going to end up on Edify. I'm going to be positive here. So here's what I need you to do. If you could please, when you hear this, download the Edify app. That's EDIFI. EDIFI. That's literally how it is spelled. EDIFI. Download the Edify app. Now, I don't know when we're going to end up on there. I'm hoping it's today. The minute we end up, we listen, this is so critical. The minute we end up on the Edify app, I need anyone and everyone, even if you hate me, please at least try to help me out here. Download the Edify app. Once our podcasts are there, find our podcast, Theology Central, VBC Bible Institute, the Non-Catholic Catholic, and you can focus on the Theology Central one at first. Just listen, download, stream. Just let it play all day. Let it play every episode that you can find. Play, download, stream. Because if we just go online, as soon as we end up on that app, if we start off with just a large number of downloads and streams, that will probably kick us up into the queue as being those podcasts they recommend. And when you show up on the page of recommended podcast, you increase your visibility 100-fold, right? You can't even imagine that. That's why I'm always telling you, give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Write a review. Like those, unless you get, if you get 30, 40, 50, 5-star ratings, 30 or 40 written reviews, your podcast is going to start showing up on recommended list. That's where you need to be, because no one's going to find our podcast is just one of a bazillion podcasts. And so we're never going to be found unless people help us out. So once we get up on Edify, that would be great if we just boom, download, stream. And next thing you know, we're being recommended. That would be great. Now, and of course, you're recommending a podcast that's going to offer a very different perspective than most Christian podcasts. And I think that that's needed, and I think that should be a good thing. I've got the Edify app open here right now. I'm just going to see if we show up here. All right, here we go. I'm going to go. See, they got recommended, a recommended tab, but obviously we're not on there yet. See, Theology Central. Nope. We're still not there. If you type in Theology Central right now, Issues, Etc. shows up. Now, that's a great podcast. Issues, Etc. Everyone should subscribe to that podcast. They really should. Teaching Grace, that shows up. Theology in the Raw. Okay. Grace and Glory audio. Theology Curator with Kurt Willems. And let's see, what else do we have here? Central Creative, and that's about it. Let's see, let me load more. Theology for the Rest of Us, quick answers to the questions about God in the Bible. Well, the fact that they have quick answers about God in the Bible, clearly we would not get along, because I don't believe in quick answers. They have Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary audio podcast. That sounds really good. I may subscribe to that. I'm going to subscribe to that really quick. That sounds good. Everyday Theology plus Questions Kids Ask. Central City Church podcast. So they've got a lot of they got a lot of stuff on here. I still they emailed me back. Let me see here. Go back to our email. I'm not understanding why we're having so much difficulty to get an answer from Edify. I don't know what the deal is. They sent me an email at 5:53 a.m. as well. Are you on Apple Podcast? Which I sent them a message back. We're on every podcasting app on the planet except for one, yours. Okay. Edify is the only place we're not. We're on every other podcast app under the sun. I don't know why we can't end up on Edify. It's really bizarre. I don't know what we have to do. I don't know. I don't know what hoops I have to jump through. We're trying to get there. So, because I've tried to explain this. We're a theology podcast in a world of non-theology podcasts. Think about it. We're on Spotify. We're on SoundCloud. We're not on a Christian website where people are looking for sermons and theology. So we're trying to compete in the general market, which I am glad that we're there trying to compete. I'm there. We're not succeeding in any major way. I understand that. Obviously, when I did a secular podcast, boom, I was on top of the charts. Wonderful. That's great. I can do that, but I wish we could get theology there. I wish we could get a theology podcast charting, but we're not really able to accomplish that yet. But maybe we can get ourselves charting on Edify. That would be great. So any help you can, download the Edify app, Just keep searching for Theology Central, VBC Bible Institute. If there's a place to contact them and say, hey, can you add Theology Central, VBC Bible Institute? That would be great as well. So, but I'm going to stop for now because I am starving to death. I need food. I am literally going to die. Okay, that's hyperbole. What I need is for McDonald's. Hey, attention McDonald's, making me wait till December 2nd before I can get a McRib. That is criminal. That is criminal. That is, you should be all imprisoned for that. I look, I'm not a big fan of food, but when the McRib is released at McDonald's, that is like manna from heaven. I love the McRib. Man, give me 2 McRibs, a large fry, and 2 apple pies. Okay. And I am set. And I know you're thinking that I probably weigh 900 pounds. I do not. Okay. I'm not overweight. Okay. But I do like the McRib. Now, there was a day it would be a McRib and a Dr. Pepper, a McRib and a Coke, but I now abstain from all soft drinks. I I worked in the medical world for 22 years, and the doctors would always say, hey, you're drinking way too many soft drinks. You need to stop. And I always said, the second I feel that it's having a negative impact on my health, the second I feel like it's having a negative impact, I will stop cold turkey. I'm not going to just try to, no. And they say, well, you're as many Cokes and Dr. Peppers and everything that you drink, the minute you stop cold turkey, you're going to die because your body's going to go into shock. But I stopped cold turkey. I made the decision one day. Nope. I feel like it's having a negative consequence. I stopped. I had no negative side effects. I didn't get the headaches that people say I was going to get, nothing. And so now it's bottled water, Dasani. In fact, if it's not Dasani, it's not water. That's what I'm, right here, drinking right now. Yeah. So, yeah, I abandon all soft drinks. Some people ask me, do I miss them? Not really. The only thing I miss is because I became I started drinking soft drinks. You know, I was not raised in a very great home. I was like a baby. I may have just been no longer using a bottle. And I was handed a Dr. Pepper, Coke, Big Red. I was little. I grew up my life, Dr. Pepper, Coke. Countless a day. I was never forced to drink water under any circumstance. Coke, Dr. Pepper, Coke, for every meal, for breakfast, for snacks, probably 4, 5, 6 a day, 7 a day. You think I'm exaggerating? I'm not. Every meal was a Coke or a Dr. Pepper. Everything, every snack was a Coke or Dr. Pepper. So multiple a day. And but the only thing I miss is I eat certain. I got used to eating certain foods and having a Coke with it, and so it's like, that tastes weird. So if I had Taco Bell, I would always have a Pepsi. Yeah, maybe I buy into advertising. Certain places, there was a certain drink that went with it. So I've now kind of gotten used to. That was the only thing I kind of missed, but I'm not. So yeah, I'm waiting for the McRib. The reason I'm just saying all of that, the reason I'm doing all of that is because I was waiting for an email update from Edify. Give me one more second just to see if they've emailed me. Nope. So we're not. Oh, let me look under the spam folder just to make sure. Nope. Nothing. I to be honest, I do not know what we have to do. 5:53 a.m. and they're going to get back with me ASAP. And at 12:20, it's getting frustrating, but we will see. We will keep working at it. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Everyone have a great day. Yeah. You now learned about my, kicking the Coke habit. No, whoa, that sounded bad. Not cocaine. Kicking my Coca-Cola habit, Dr. Pepper habit, a Coke. In Texas, everything's a Coke, right? So the Coke habit. But no, I never, back in my drug days, I didn't do cocaine. I was offered some money to take a trunk full of cocaine down to the Mexican border, but that's to the border of Mexico. But that's a whole different story that I will tell you at another time. All right. So yeah, I won't go into that. All right, everyone have a great day. Thanks for listening. God bless.